On the third day after I fled my wedding, my fiancé committed suicide in the bridal chamber, leaving his entire estate for me to inherit. While sorting through his belongings, I saw photographs of me covering the walls, and on the floor there were specks of blood. His assistant said to me, "Miss, he had loved you for many years." The gentleman suffered from severe depression. Only when thinking about you and seeing you did he feel somewhat at ease. My heart shattered. My throat felt strangled and I could hardly breathe. So when I was given a chance to live again, facing my childhood friend's plan to elope, I smiled and refused. I'm not going anywhere. I want to stay and see just how foolishly this man who claims to love me will act. Shen Mo killed himself on the third day after I ran from the wedding. My father and elder brother had stepped forward to apologize for the incident, but just as they left the manor, they received the news that Shen Mo had slit his wrists. Resuscitation failed. He could not be saved. In the already prepared will, my name was listed as heir. I was in faraway North America when my brother called to inform me. My expression froze instantly. To me, Shen Mo was a stranger, an overbearing man who forced me into marriage out of nowhere. But everything that happened afterward seemed to prove that he had loved me for a very long time. At the lawyer's request, I rushed back to China overnight, stern-faced, carrying the urn of Shen Mo's ashes in my arms. His life was like a mystery film. No family, no relatives. His assistant looked sadly at the square urn, then softly said to me, "Mr. Shen had loved you for a very long time." The gentleman suffered from severe depression. Only when thinking about you and seeing you could he find some relief. I had thought that after marrying you, his illness would improve, but I was wrong. His voice carried no reproach, yet inexplicably tightened my chest. He handed me a key. "This is the key to the manor Mr. Shen prepared for you." He decorated the entire house himself. It is also where he took his life. The estate was vast, with even a racetrack built on lush green grass. The entire manor was decorated in jade green tones, my favorite color. The furniture inside was also exactly to my liking. Inside, there was even a room filled entirely with photographs of me. After carefully examining them, I realized that nearly every moment of my life since sophomore year of college had been captured through his lens. On the floor were scattered traces of blood from his slashed wrist. The faint metallic scent still lingered in the air, and everything in the room pressed down on me with suffocating weight. I couldn't help but feel angry. If he liked me that much, why didn't he ever say so? Instead, he barged into my life like a thief, demanding marriage by force. How could I ever feel safe marrying such a man? It took me 3 days to accept the truth that I had been given another chance at life. 3 days earlier, Shen Mo had come to my house to propose in that same forceful way. My childhood friend urged me to run away and hide in distant North America for a few days. That is exactly what I had done in my previous life. But this time, standing before his plan for me to flee, I remembered that room full of my photographs, the specks of blood on the floor. Calmly, I shook my head. I'm not going anywhere. I want to meet him and ask clearly why he insists on marrying me. Shen Mo was a very successful man in his career. When I went to find him, he was still in a meeting. His assistant personally greeted me and invited me to wait in the office. "Our president will be down shortly." I nodded lightly. Indeed, Shen Mo arrived quickly. I hadn't even finished my tea when he appeared, fastening the buttons of his suit jacket as he walked. The moment he saw me, he stopped and greeted me softly. "Miss Gu." His expression was cold and distant, as though he were only looking at a stranger on the street. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. After a pause, I calmly asked, "Mr. Shen, my father said you wished to marry me. Why?" "If I want to marry, I will marry. There is no reason." What could I possibly say to that? I slowly stood up, picked up my handbag, and told him, "Then I'll take my leave." For an instant, Shen Mo's expression changed. Rare surprise flickered across his face. "Leaving already?" I looked at him indifferently. His pace failed, as if he were about to give up. Yet he still stepped aside, giving way for me. If I hadn't been certain that he liked me, I would have thought he was toying with me on purpose. I sighed, reached out to tug lightly on his sleeve, and asked, "Shall we have dinner together?" Shen Mo's assistant looked startled at the interaction between us. When I left, he quickly followed, apologizing. "Our president isn't good at talking to women. Please don't be upset, Miss Gu." "I'm not upset," I smiled. In fact, I was intrigued by him. Yes, his appearance was very pleasing to the eye. The office door was still ajar. Through the small gap, I glimpsed Shen Mo standing dazed, raising his hand to touch his own face. I smiled faintly and told his assistant, "I've invited your president to dinner. Please remind him not to forget our appointment." The assistant nodded rapidly, as if I might change my mind. Wearing my high heels, I walked gracefully outside the company. As soon as I stepped outside, my phone rang. It was my childhood friend. Seeing the name Liang Thong on the screen, I calmly hung up, lifted my gaze to the sky, my mind at ease. Liang Thong had always been very good to me, always considerate, but whether childhood friend or companion, in the end, we still part ways along the long road of life. So it had been in my past life. Liang Thong eventually married and had his own family. No matter how hard I tried to avoid suspicion, when I was trapped on the mountain with the expedition team and had no choice but to call Liang Tan for help, his wife mocked me, calling me an old spinster. While she scolded me, Liang Tan sat silently beside her, saying nothing. The result was that day I met with disaster and died. And whether Liang Tan had any thoughts about it or not, I will never know. That evening, Shen Mo arrived at the restaurant very early. The atmosphere of the dinner was cold. While I kept trying to find topics to talk about, he acted like a machine, cutting everything down, showing no interest at all. In the end, I grew irritated and put my knife and fork heavily on the table. "Mr. Shen, you're truly making me feel as if you have no sincerity in wanting to marry me." His throat moved slightly. He lowered his head and said softly, "I'm sorry." But that wasn't what I wanted to hear. He had run a massive company for years, rarely losing a negotiation. By rights, he should have an advantage in understanding people. Yet now acting like this, he truly made me feel as though he didn't care about me at all. Shen Mo's face paled, the tips of his fingers digging so hard into his palms that they bled a little. "Please, Miss Gu, don't overthink. It's just that I've never been this close to you before, and for the moment, I'm not used to it." The anxious, restless expression on his face and the faint trace of blood on his skin did not seem fake. Suddenly, I remembered what his assistant had once told me in my previous life. Mr. Shen suffered from severe depression. Only when thinking of you, seeing you, did he feel any relief. "Mr. Shen, I'm curious. Have we ever met before?" His thin lips trembled, his eyes instinctively avoiding mine. He turned his head to look out through the floor-to-ceiling glass of the restaurant. "Since when have you known me?" I pressed, but he refused to say another word. His attitude made me lose interest, and I gave up trying to find topics, silently cutting my steak. Shen Mo also stayed silent as though he himself didn't realize how wrong the atmosphere had become. He simply stared fixedly at my lips and throat, watching intently as I swallowed red wine. When I glared at him, he panicked, quickly looking away. His expression grew unnatural, his thin lips pressed together, his teeth biting until his lip bled. Exasperated, I said aloud, "If you want to look, then look directly. Why sneak glances like that? We're about to be married, Mr. Shen. Can you at least act above board? You've taken countless photos of me, spied on me so often, even bribed my household staff. If not for the fact that in my previous life you died so miserably, I would have sued you as a pervert." But then his assistant had said he was depressed. With someone ill, one must be more patient. So I reached out and took Shen Mo's hand. Ignoring the way his expression froze like stone, I moistened the tissue and gently wiped the dried blood from his palm. "Your hands are beautiful. Please don't hurt them again." Shen Mo stayed silent, lifting his eyes to study my brows for a long time. Then in a low voice he asked, "Knowing what I'm like, would you still be willing to marry me? Would you really accept it if my answer wasn't what you wanted?" His throat moved and he said, "If you don't want to, you don't have to." What he meant was I could run from the wedding or point to his face and scold him, declaring I would never marry him. I looked into his eyes. For me, doing that was no problem. But Shen Mo, what about him? The outcome was obvious. He would surely kill himself. In my previous life, I never imagined what kind of weakness or helplessness could drive a man to that extreme, choosing to end his life calmly just because he didn't have the courage to face the woman he loved. Once, his death was unbearable to me. There was no doubt Shen Mo was a remarkable man, keen in judgment, with a mysterious background. No matter how his rivals investigated, his origins always remained a mystery. All they could do was watch him rise to dominate the market, crushing even the prestige of old, powerful clans in Jing City. Yet such a talented man at the prime of his life had killed himself for a woman. In my previous life, that made Shen Mo the laughingstock of the world, mocked as the sovereign of fools in love. With his rivals adding fuel, people cursed him all the more viciously. I absolutely did not want this to happen again. On the way home, I thought a lot. Seeing Shen Mo drive in silence, expressionless, I secretly decided I would speak to his assistant in 2 days, because I truly didn't know how to face him. Or his illness. Was there really no other way? The black Rolls Royce stopped in front of my villa just as Liang Tan was arriving, carrying desserts. Shenbon narrowed his eyes. "Do you want to get out and greet him?" I tilted my head. "He's just a good friend. There's no need." Though I said so, inside I went cold, my throat bitter as if I'd swallowed weeds. Shen Mo leaned over to unbuckle my seatbelt. "Go inside." I held his wrist. "He and I are only old friends. Don't overthink." His throat moved. "It won't happen. Truly not." I turned to look at him. Both his hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, veins standing out faintly. I reached out, brushing my fingers against his. "If something is bothering you, can't you tell me? Don't keep it locked inside, or it will be very hard for us to live together later." Shen Mo was persuaded by me. His throat slid up and down. He turned his head aside and said slowly, "I don't like him." "Then you don't need to be friends," I said, smoothing his hair. "He's only my friend. You don't need to force yourself to befriend him. Besides, later on, we'll be husband and wife. Our relationship will be far closer than yours with him. If you mind my connection with Liang Tan that much, then in the future I'll keep my distance." Shen Mo looked shocked. "You'd really distance yourself from him for me?" "Why not?" I smiled at him. "We're husband and wife." He froze, stunned without reason. I seized the chance to strike while the iron was hot, coaxing him. "See? Everything has a solution once it's spoken. If you ever have anything you want to say or anything you're unhappy about, just tell me. Don't swallow it in silence. There are many things I don't know yet. I could almost conclude one thing. Shen Mo had absolutely no idea how to handle close relationships. He used business negotiation tactics to force me into marriage. Yet, when I took the initiative to meet him, he fumbled, not knowing what to do. In matters of the heart, he was frighteningly naive. But that was fine, I thought to myself. I could teach him slowly. When I stepped out of Shen Mo's Rolls Royce, Liang Dang narrowed his eyes, his expression unfriendly. Once the car drove away, he walked straight up to me and asked, "So, you've decided to marry him? A man handsome, rich, well-mannered, without the slightest scandal? Why wouldn't you?" But then he stopped, his face a mixture of worry, anxiety, and anger. Finally, he said in a dry voice, "Are you sure you even like him?" In this society, how many couples truly marry for love? I shrugged. "He suits me very well." Liang Thang's eyes widened. "Then what about us?" I cut him off coldly. "I'm about to get married. Don't say things that will make others misunderstand." With that, I decisively walked into the house, ignoring him. To be honest, even though I was lucky enough to be reborn into this life, I still couldn't understand Liang Thing's feelings for me. Sometimes he treated me as if I were the most precious person in the world. Like when I admired a necklace, he would scour all of North Europe to find it for me. But other times, he was terrible. He never even remembered my birthday. In my past life, I had boldly proposed to him only to be rejected. He said he wanted to enjoy a few more years of freedom. And yet, not long after, while skiing in Pechbai, he fell for a beautiful, lively girl at first sight, married her quickly, and within 3 short months had a child. His wife was very sensitive to my presence, so I was tactful, never contacting him of my own accord. Who would have thought that the last time I called Liang Thang would also be the final farewell of my life? Surely, when he learned of my death, he must have felt at least a little sadness. After all, once we had sat on the rooftop together all night, watching the stars on the very day his father and stepmother had slapped him for defending his half-brother. The next day, I went to see Shen Mo. He was in a meeting. Through the clear glass wall, I could see his serious expression, his furrowed brows. Even the suit he wore seemed sterner than usual. I sat in his office waiting, chatting with his assistant. The man was highly professional, always evasive with his answers. When I asked about Shenro's illness, he repeatedly claimed he didn't know. I grew impatient. "Don't you think it's better to tell me about his condition?" But he only said, "Mr. Shen truly doesn't want you to know. He wishes to appear perfect in front of you." Then, with a meaningful look, he added, "Miss Gu, I hope he can become your support." "What do you mean?" I asked. Just then, Shen Mo ended his meeting and returned to the office, loosening his tie, his face weary. "So handsome. Mr. Shen, have you ever had plastic surgery?" I leaned back on the sofa, smiling at him. He froze for a moment. "Your assistant told me you haven't. What a pity. Even as a woman, I can't compete with your looks." Shen Mo stood stunned, while his assistant, noticing his master's sudden flicker of interest, wisely excused himself and shut the door. The room was deadly quiet. I could clearly hear the faint rustle as Shen Mo brushed his hand over the fabric of his suit. His voice was husky. "You think I'm handsome? Is it really that surprising?" I arched my brow. "Mr. Shen, don't you know you're very good-looking?" His earlobes flushed red. Embarrassed, he turned his face away, avoiding my gaze. You're still calling me Mr. Shen. Doesn't it sound too distant? I stepped closer, reaching out to touch his hair. He must have used some gel. It felt stiff, unpleasant. Leaning close to his ear, I whispered, "Then let me call you Big Brother. Is that okay?" Shen Mo suddenly pushed me away, his temper flaring. I couldn't understand why he grew angry so suddenly, just as I couldn't understand why he liked me at all. He walked to his desk, sat down with his back to me, his tone irritated. "Leave, unless you wanted to have lunch with me." "No." He refused bluntly. "I have work this afternoon." "What kind of work?" I asked, watching him for a while. Then I answered myself, slowly. "Never mind. Just remember to eat, okay?" I picked up my bag and walked out. Standing in the corridor, I could clearly hear, over the assistant's anxious face, the sound of objects smashing and Shen Mo's muffled cries of frustration. I had purposely left the door ajar so his assistant would hear every desperate noise inside. Tapping my fingers on the table, I turned to the assistant with a serious face. "You still won't tell me anything?" He hesitated. I ignored it, decisively pushing the door open and stepping back inside. The sight before me was pitiful. Shen Mo was crouched in a corner, arms wrapped tightly around his knees, sitting amidst broken glass. His fingertips were bloody, whether from deliberately cutting himself or being pierced by shards, I couldn't tell. My heels crunched over the shards as I walked toward him, the sharp sound grating on the ears. Shen Mo lowered his head in panic, his whole body trembling, refusing to look at me. I reached out and touched his shoulder gently. "What's wrong?" I couldn't carry a tall, broad-shouldered man like him, so I crouched down beside him instead, carefully using tweezers to pick the shards of glass from his hands. Shen Mo lifted his head, speaking hoarsely. "They're ugly now, aren't they?" "What?" I blinked. "Your hands?" I stared at his long, slender fingers, inwardly wondering how a man could be so childish. "They're not ugly. They're still beautiful." With no other choice, I bent down and pressed a light kiss on his hand. "Your hands are beautiful." Still, Shen Mo remained unhappy. "You used to say that to your ex-boyfriends too, didn't you?" "What?" "You flatter me, treat me well, call me Big Brother. Did you treat those before me the same way?" I was speechless, so that was why he was angry. I thought it was because he had a younger sister, and my calling him Big Brother had stirred something in him. But no, even after one lifetime, Shen Mo was nothing more than a love-obsessed madman. How could a man so powerful and strong-willed let himself be ruled by emotions in such a terrifying way? I stroked his head and sighed softly. Fool. I had said this more than once. I'm beautiful, I have a happy and loving family, and have always had plenty of admirers chasing after me. So having a few ex-boyfriends was inevitable. But my family always believed that love and marriage are two completely different things. Since I was young, my father told me that I could fall in love freely, but once grown, I must take marriage seriously. I helped him up, guided him to the sofa, poured him a glass of warm water, and called the staff to clean up the mess. I busied myself nonstop until Shen Mo caught my hand and pulled me back. "You don't need to do these things," he said. I let him pull me down onto the seat, thinking to myself, he must know how many exes I've had. I've always been playful, done countless silly things. Once he fixated on this, there was no way around it. "You're not allowed to contact them anymore," Shen Mo suddenly said, cutting through my thoughts. I glanced at him, saw how serious he looked, and reached to rub his neck. "Are you giving me orders now?" His entire body went rigid.
His breathing quickened, his reaction unnaturally tense. He turned his head anxiously. "If you want to contact them, you have to tell me first. Otherwise, you understand." I cut him off. "I won't contact them anymore." Then I asked, "Just now, you lost your temper because you were thinking about my exes, right?" Shen Mo stayed silent. I sighed. If something bothers you, you should just say it. Keeping silent, losing your temper, smashing things, and still refusing to be comforted, it's exhausting for me. "So, all those men before me were better than I am, right?" He suddenly interrupted, eyes bloodshot, his tone petulant like a child. I stared at him exasperated. If you like to obsess over these things, then there's nothing I can do about it. I don't think falling in love a few times is some kind of crime. The past is the past. Why can't you let it go? Mr. Shen, do you feel happy digging it up again and again, forcing answers out of me? Fine then, I'll tell you. When I was with them, I laughed, I joked, and yes, I really liked them. Does that make you happy to hear? Shen Mo's eyes turned red, as if he might burst into tears. When I stood up, he panicked and grabbed my sleeve, but I brushed him off. My voice wavered. "I thought that as long as I try to cooperate with you, we could get along. But now I realize I simply cannot keep up with the way your mind works." Looking at his reddened eyes, I slowed my tone. "Being with me doesn't make you happy. You keep hurting yourself. Shen Mo, maybe we should cancel the wedding." "No." Shen Mo's bloodshot eyes lifted to mine. He gripped my arm tightly, repeating over and over, "I won't cancel the wedding. I won't." I leaned closer, close enough to see the fine hair on his skin. With his pitiable voice, it really felt like I was bullying a child. I brushed his hair back and asked, "Then tell me, why do you want to marry me?" His gaze flickered, and he turned his head aside. I grabbed his chin firmly. "Tell me, Shen Mo, please, tell me why." His eyelashes trembled, his tone heavy with sorrow. "I just really want to marry you." "Why?" I pressed. His eyes shimmered with unshed tears, looking at me as if pleading, unable to say the words. So I said them for him. "It's because you like me so much, isn't it? Fool, what's so hard about saying that?" I stroked his cheek, tried to pull him up, but instead he yanked me down, pressing me onto the sofa. The strong image he usually carried was torn apart. He clung to my shoulders and wept. "Am I pathetic like this? Are you afraid of me? Afraid that a disgusting person like me likes you?" I looked at him in disbelief. What on earth was going on in his head? Disgusting? Terrifying? God, did he not know that he topped the list of the most desirable men to marry? Why would a man like him be so insecure? A fleeting thought crossed my mind. I cupped his face, forced him to look up at me, gently wiping away his tears. "When my friends learned I would be marrying you, do you know how jealous they were? They said I must have accumulated good karma 8 lifetimes to be so lucky. So tell me, why should I ever feel ashamed?" He stopped crying but buried his head in the curve of my neck. I patted his back and sighed. "Can't you just have more confidence in yourself? You own this entire 32-story building. Everyone who sees you has to respectfully call you President Shen. And you're handsome too. Isn't it normal that I'd like you?" His body trembled, his voice faint, disbelieving. You like me? If not, do you think I have nothing better to do than keep showing up at your place?" I stroked his back, speaking softly.
Shen Mo, women never waste their time on men they don't care about. So be confident. You're capable, talented. Our future will be good. You have to believe me. He started crying again, his tears soaked into my collar, warm and cold all at once, numbing my skin. "Don't lie to me," he whispered. "I'm not lying. Not at all." My heart softened. I lightly brushed his earlobe, feeling his warm breath against my neck, his heartbeat pounding hard against my chest. None of my exes had ever been like him. It felt so new. I thought to myself, Shen Mo's heart is far too fragile. Every word, every gesture, every shift in my tone could shatter him in an instant. This was not the demeanor of a man who owned a massive listed company. But reality turned out strangely ironic. Shen Mo stood up awkwardly, his cheeks flushed red, yet he still tried to maintain a cold facade. Looking at me, he asked gently, "Are you hungry?" "A little," I replied, standing up and smoothing my wrinkled dress, pulling it down to cover the bit of exposed waist. He quickly turned his face away, blushing like a ripe tomato. I couldn't help but feel exasperated. How could a man his age, nearly 30, still be so naive? Suppressing my confusion, I asked lazily, "Tell your assistant to order food delivered. I'm too lazy to lift a finger." "All right." Shen Mo stepped out to give instructions. I watched his tall figure under the warm light, silently raising my hand to measure the length of his legs from afar, increasingly astonished by his perfect proportions. He had a well-proportioned body, a handsome face, wealth and power, and yet he didn't indulge in debauchery. If not for his mental struggles, I probably wouldn't have stood a chance with him even after cultivating good karma for 8 lifetimes. I had to admit this much. His fragile mental state was partially due to insomnia. His assistant once confessed to me, embarrassedly, that many nights Shen Mo could only fall asleep while clutching photos of me. I didn't press him on where those photos came from, and he seemed relieved. Another day, I visited Shen Mo again. Staring at him while he worked made his ears turn red, his focus faltering. He put down the documents in his hands and asked me, "Am I handsome?" I nodded instinctively, then remembered my true purpose. "Can I go there for a bit? The house you prepared for us." Shen Mo froze. "Why suddenly?" "I just want to take a look. After all, we'll be living there in the future." He didn't refuse, nodding instead. "If there's anything you don't like, just tell me." Stepping once again into that spacious, luxurious estate, my eyes misted slightly. The sunlight streamed in, bathing me in a warmth and comfort that contrasted starkly with the bone-chilling cold of my previous life when I only wanted to escape. Silently, I glanced at the tightly locked room on the second floor, right-hand side. Inside, I knew, were countless photos of me and oil paintings he had done himself, all portraits of me with a black mole at the corner of my eye. I followed Shen Mo quietly into the bedroom. The bed was already made with thick blankets embroidered with the giant red character "Hung for Joy." Standing by the bed, I couldn't help but laughing and crying at once. Tugging his sleeve, I asked him, "Do you really want to marry me?" "I do." His Adam's apple bobbed. "Are you unhappy with something?" "No, everything's fine." I pulled him down to sit on the bed, asking him, "When did you start preparing all this?" "These past few days," he answered, stretching out his fingers obediently for me to play with, docile and harmless. Because of my earlier objections, Shen Mo had stopped using hair gel lately.
His fringe now fell naturally across his forehead, softening the sharpness of his usual appearance. Next to this very room was the one in my previous life where he had chosen to end his life, blood staining the floor. But in this life, Shen Mo held me in his arms, his chin resting gently on the top of my head, looking serene and content. In that moment, he resembled a wild beast lazily basking in the sunlit grass. Had I already managed to change his fate? As the wedding drew near, I visited him almost daily, often staying late into the night before returning home. My father scolded me repeatedly, showing no restraint. Shen Mo, however, seemed happy. He ate more, gained a little weight. The bony fingers I once held now had a touch more flesh. One day, as I was heading to see Shen Mo, I unexpectedly ran into Liang Ting in the company lobby. He rushed over, seized my arm, and said, "Quick, he's bewitched you. Come, I'll take you away. Let's go to North America." "Are you insane?" I looked at him in disbelief. "Think whatever you want. I can't let you sink any deeper." Liang Ting's teeth clenched in anger. "Yuan, you don't love him. You're just fascinated by something new. You can't live like this forever." "Whether I love him or not, what does it matter to you?" I asked coldly. "Don't you think you're meddling too much?" Liang Ting's eyes widened in shock, his face filled with sorrow. He seemed drained of strength, his voice dropping to a plea. Yuan, can we get married instead? You can't just abandon me." He looked disheveled, as if beaten, clothes wrinkled, panic written all over his face as he begged for pity. Unbidden, I recalled what my best friend once told me on the day he got married. If it were you to marry first, he'd go mad. He'd never accept that love at first sight could outweigh years of friendship. She was right. He hung on to the fact that I hadn't been with any men for years, that he was my only male friend, to justify acting without restraint. Liang Ting. I called his name, my feelings complicated. I brushed dust off his shoulder. "Go home. I'll pretend I never heard what you just said. I'm getting married soon. From now on, be mindful. Don't do anything that could make others misunderstand me." He stared at me in panic, then tears streaming down his face said in a low voice, "Just one slip of hand, and there's no place left for me to turn back? We're only friends." I threw his own words back at him from our past life. "If you want us to remain friends for the rest of our lives, then so be it." When I pushed the door open and entered, Shen Mo was sitting on the sofa, the air around him heavy and suffocating. "Why are you late today?" he asked. "I ran into a friend and stopped to chat for a bit." I carefully placed the snacks I had brought on the table before turning back to him, his expression unusually gloomy. "What's wrong?" He lifted his eyes, his tone brooding and strange. "With Liang Ting.
My heart skipped. How does he know? I wanted to ask, but then remembered the people who had passed by when I was talking with Liang Ting. There was no need. I spoke honestly. He found me, said he wanted to take me away. Shen Mo narrowed his eyes, a dangerous gleam flashing within them. I patted his shoulder, leaning lazily against him. But I turned him down. I told him I wanted to be with you. Shen Mo gave a faint, almost indifferent "oh." "No praise for me?" I teased. He tilted his head. "What's there to praise? You just showed your loyalty to me right in front of another man." I feigned displeasure, pinching him in mock anger. "And you don't even react at all?" His Adam's apple bobbed as he stared at me blankly for a long while before finally moving. He stood, walked to his desk, and pulled open a drawer. From inside, he took out a small box. Inside lay a necklace with a massive blue crystal pendant. It looks familiar. Wasn't this the one from the auction in Hong Kong? Yes. I laughed. The necklace was beautiful and valuable, though it didn't compare to the staggering 300 million won Shen Mo had paid to acquire it. After that auction, every newspaper headline screamed, "A necklace worth 300 million won." "Why did you buy it then?" "Because you like blue," he whispered. "I thought it would suit you." "Thank you." I wrapped my arms around his neck, caressing his cheek. "The auction was 2 months ago. Why give it to me only now?" "Because you weren't happy today." His voice was low. "I was saving it for your birthday, but I thought maybe it could cheer you up now." "I'm never unhappy," I muttered. But remembering my earlier words, I fell silent, hiding my smile as I continued to feign anger. This fool really couldn't tell if I was pretending or not. I poked his cheek with a finger. "Actually, I'm not mad at you at all. In fact, I'm very happy. Shen Mo, I think I'm starting to like you more and more." His cheeks flushed red. He pulled me onto his lap and gently pressed a kiss to my forehead. To be honest, aside from those moments when Shen Mo lost his control, I rarely sensed his illness. Around me, he was just like anyone else, though a little slow to react emotionally, unable to fully grasp a woman's feelings. Yet, his assistant constantly reminded me not to provoke him. I couldn't help but wonder, has his condition worsened? "No," he answered calmly. "In fact, his mood has improved a lot. Recently, he doesn't even need sleeping pills to rest at night." "Then why keep reminding me over and over?" He lowered his voice, almost pleading. "Miss Ko, it's only because of you. You've eased his condition. If you ever grow tired and leave, the consequences will be serious." "Suicide," I silently added to his words. He continued, desperate. "I don't know your true intentions in being with him, but please don't leave him suddenly. If you do, he'll truly lose his mind." I patted his shoulder. "Don't worry. I care for him more than you realize. I'm not some savior, nor a professional therapist. I just want Shen Mo to live with a little less sorrow and a little more joy. A man like him deserves happiness. When your heart is light, every place you go feels beautiful." When Shen Mo's father came to see me, I was caught off guard. It was the first time I'd even heard mention of his family. The man was from Beijing, dressed in an expensive suit, polished leather shoes. His features resembled Shen Mo's, but the aura he gave off was the complete opposite, harsh, intimidating. The moment he arrived, he cut straight to the point. "Miss Ko, I want you to leave my son." I faltered slightly. Picking up my teacup, I sipped to steady myself before calmly asking, "And how much will you give me?" 2 million, enough to help your family through its current crisis." I blinked. Crisis? I truly had no idea about my family's business troubles. Feigning composure, I stared at him for a while before replying, "We love each other sincerely. That amount isn't enough. One necklace he gave me was already worth 300 million won. Your offer isn't enough to make my heart waver." He sneered. "You think being with him is truly a good thing?" His laugh made my skin crawl. "I suppose you haven't contacted your ex-boyfriends lately, have you? Try calling them, see if any are still alive. And that Luong thing,
You think Shen Mo will let him go? And your brother? You think sharing blood will keep him safe? Let me remind you, Shen Mo won't spare anyone. His words cut like knives. Your love for my son, it's so great, isn't it? Great enough to bring ruin to everyone around you, while you remain blind, kept in the dark like a fool, knowing nothing? My brows furrowed, disgust rising. I trust Shen Mo. He's not that kind of person. Not that kind? He laughed coldly. Go and see for yourself then. We're father and son. The same tricks I once used on his mother, sooner or later he'll use them on you. Do you believe it? So you mean your wife shouldn't have stayed with you? No. His grin twisted arrogantly. We live happily. She didn't escape. She had no choice but to submit. After all, her family was something she couldn't abandon. Now she's obedient, docile. Every day she waits for me at home, gentle, tame, stripped of her claws and fangs, a little bird trapped in a steel cage. I jolted awake, realizing I had been dreaming. The north wind blew in through the window, making me shiver. My back was drenched in cold sweat. Never in my life had I met anyone so suffocatingly repulsive as Shen Mo's father. Just recalling his arrogant words about taming made me want to vomit. It was late afternoon, yet I had slept nearly 3 hours. Checking my phone, I saw 16 missed calls from Shen Mo. I immediately called him back. Before I could say anything, his urgent voice rushed through the receiver. Why didn't you answer? You met my father, didn't you? What did he say? Do you not want me anymore? Are you going to run away? Break the engagement or leave me? Stop jumping to conclusions, I cut him off firmly. It's not what you think.
I fell asleep. That's why I didn't answer. Don't overthink it. Shen Mo stayed silent, his breathing heavy. After a long pause, he finally murmured, Yuyan, I'm so afraid. His voice was filled with sorrow and fragility, pulling at my heartstrings. Don't be afraid, I sighed softly. Yes, he's your father, but to me, he's just a stranger. I believe in you. Do you understand what I mean? He didn't answer my question. Instead, he whispered, Yuyan, I want to see you. He drove over to pick me up. The moment I got in the car, he pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly. Burying his face against my neck, he pleaded through tears, Don't believe a word he said, not even one. All right, I patted his shoulder gently. I only believe in you. His eyes were wet when he lifted his head. Thanks to me, he had begun expressing his emotions more openly. Now, whenever something upset him, he would try to say it out loud instead of bottling it up like before. Just like now, with slumped shoulders, he asked miserably, Can you promise not to see him again? Today, I was really terrified. When I called and you didn't pick up, it felt like I was about to die. Don't say that word. I pressed my hand against his lips. You have to live a very long time. The sudden interruption of his thoughts left him stunned. He just sat there blankly for a while. I stroked his hair and smiled. If you don't want me to meet him, then I won't. After all, the only reason I even met him was because of you. Shen Mo, you need to trust yourself more. I don't believe what anyone else says about you. I only believe in what I see, what I hear, and most of all, what you tell me yourself. You're a perfect man, strong, capable. You should have more confidence. Shen Mo had always been consumed by inferiority, convinced he was unworthy. I couldn't imagine what he had gone through to leave him so broken and timid, especially when it came to love. Like a headless fly, he flailed about in fear, certain no one could truly love him. Lately, I had taken every chance to praise him, from his looks to his intelligence, from his wealth to his status. I complimented it all. Even down to his neatly trimmed nails, I told them they were cute. Because only with confidence could he live without fear, without trembling like a lost bird. I wanted so badly for him to enjoy our relationship with ease, to feel joy instead of suffocating tension, to stop tormenting himself, overthinking every detail, exhausting himself just to feel worthy. Shen Mo, I'm an adult. I have my own judgment. I won't change how I see you just because of your father's words. I leaned in, hugging his shoulders. I like you very much. If you ever doubt me, ask me directly. And remember, I'm not going anywhere. You're too good. I wouldn't let anyone else have such a prize. His eyes sparkled, bright like diamonds. Compared to the cold, lifeless man I'd first met, now he was warmer, more human, no longer like a rotting tree ready to collapse at any moment. Finally, I could feel that my presence truly mattered in his life. I once thought his pain came from his family. That belief was confirmed when he whispered in my ear that he hated his name, Shen Mo. He said, "My father despises me because I was the one who ruined my parents' relationship. He's always wanted me dead. Mo, it means dusk, sunset. From the moment I was born, he wished me gone." How could a father say such a thing? My chest tightened. I clasped his hand. "But your mother loves you." He said bitterly, "She doesn't. I was just a burden to her." His mother wasn't like me. She was the picture of a traditional woman, despite her education. She clung to old beliefs that a woman's duty was to raise her children and serve her husband. After giving birth to him, her resistance crumbled. She couldn't abandon him, yet she couldn't give him a full life either. She simply surrendered to fate. As he spoke, his voice faltered. His eyes grew red and misty, trembling with confusion and pain. The sight tore at me. None of this was his fault. It was his father who created this misery. He should never have been made to bear it. Feeling the warmth of his chest, I spoke with conviction. "Shen Mo, you're extraordinary, truly amazing. I'm sure your mother must be proud of you." He gave a bitter smile, brushing my hair softly. "Only you would say that. Only you think I'm wonderful." "You yawn?" He whispered earnestly, clutching me tightly, his chin resting on my head. "Please, don't ever leave me. I'll lose my mind if you do." Later, when I opened his private email, I was bombarded with a stream of harassing messages. I immediately wanted to confront the sender. Just how much hatred did it take to despise your own son this much, to want to destroy him completely? Taking a deep breath, I read through them. Most were threats, laced with attached photos of my ex-lovers, each message describing how miserable their current lives were, ending with the plea for me to leave Shen Mo. I deleted them all without hesitation. Lately, I had been swamped with wedding preparations, drowning in guest lists and errands, leaving me little time to see him. Then, one night, I got a sudden call from Shen Mo's assistant. He told me Shen Mo had attempted suicide. I froze, numb, like my soul had dropped into an icy abyss. Before he tried to end his life, his father had visited him. No one knew what words had been exchanged. All I know is this: whatever was said had shattered his already fragile spirit, driving him to the edge.
Right after his father left, Shen Mo slit his wrists. Luckily, someone found him in time. Outside the emergency room, I clutched my shawl tightly, squatting against the wall, teeth chattering. How could there be a father like that in this world? He clearly knew how fragile Shen Mo's mental state was, yet still chose to ruthlessly push him into the abyss. When Shen Mo was wheeled out, an IV needle stuck in his arm, his face pale as death, my heart sank. The healthy flush I had worked so hard to nurture in him was gone, destroyed. I pulled a chair to his bedside and stared blankly until he woke up. The moment his eyes opened and saw me, he rasped my name. You, Yuan? I pretended not to hear, standing to call the nurse. When she came to remove the IV, I just stood there staring at his ashen face in silence. It scared him. If you're upset, he stammered, just yell at me. Hit me if you want. Just don't stay quiet like this. Yuan, please don't ignore me. This man was terrified of cold violence. Every time I gave him the silent treatment, he would panic like a child, clinging to my sleeve, begging forgiveness. But not this time. I let him flounder in his fear, ignoring him the whole day, watching him spiral into chaos and self-abandonment. The wound on his wrist was ugly, torn open repeatedly, blood oozing non-stop. Even the doctor urged me gently to be more considerate of the patient's emotions. I know, I replied softly. Don't worry, doctor. When I returned to the ward, Shen Mo sat by the window staring vacantly. He looked like an empty shell, so weak it was almost disappointing. Shen Mo, I called from 3 meters away, my voice cold. Sensing something, he squeezed his eyes shut in pain, refusing to answer. I ignored his avoidance. Let's call off the engagement. A crash erupted. The vase on the bedside table shattered. His expression twisted feral, then quickly collapsed into despair. Shen Mo! He rasped, crawling towards me on hands and knees. His wrist split open again, blood soaking the floor. I stepped forward, seized his arm, smoothed his messy hair. What are you trying to do now? Swallow me whole? Break me down until I obey you? Or hurt yourself instead of touching me? Yuan, his wide, terrified eyes locked onto mine like a cornered animal stares at its hunter. I answered for him. You'd choose the second option, wouldn't you? Leaning down, I brushed the lightest kiss across his lips, without desire, just pity. Then I pinched his cheek before leaving. You're not your father, and I am not your mother. The two of us will not end up like them. Shen Mo, darling, what is it that you're so afraid of? And then I understood his father's twisted psychology. That man knew, even if his mother surrendered and lived in submission, her soul would never be happy. Their marriage was never truly blissful. So he could not bear the sight of his son finding joy, of Shen Mo being loved so easily. It made him feel like a failure, breeding hatred. Again and again he reminded me, Shen Mo was his son, his blood. Sooner or later he'll be as vile as me. He had sneered. I checked the surveillance tapes. Before leaving, his father had told him, my son, just wait. As long as you're alive, you won't be able to stop yourself from treating her the same way I treated my mother. Your present will become her future. I laughed bitterly. So he knew. He knew his wife's life was misery. Yet he used her suffering as a weapon to threaten young women who stepped into her shadow. Shen Mo didn't want me to become his mother's replica. He didn't want to hurt me. He despised the filthy blood in his veins. So in his turmoil, he chose the most destructive path, to harm himself. Didn't he realize how different he was from his father? I crouched by his bed, staring into his eyes. When your mother tried to escape, your father threatened her, imprisoned her, humiliated her. But you chose to hurt yourself. I held his uninjured hand, interlacing our fingers. Tell me, do you think you would ever hurt me that way? His throat bobbed, red eyes clouded with fear. He whispered, Yuan, you're so kind, so proud. I'm terrified you'll end up like my mother. No, I cut him off. We will be happy. Humans are predators, yes, but what sets us apart is self-control. The same primitive urges run through all of us, but strength means suppressing them. You feared you'd hurt me, so instead you'd rather destroy yourself. Shen Mo, that in itself proves your difference. You must trust yourself. I gazed into his eyes. Believe me, I am not your mother. I don't live by blind obedience. I stay with you simply because I like you. Because I like you very, very much. Yuan? His voice trembled. Darling, I said firmly, believe me.
I had told him this countless times already. I'd always been indifferent to relationships, disgusted by arrogant men who belittled women. If I hadn't met him, I probably would have lived my life alone, just as in my previous life, dying solitary on a mountain climb.
When I was younger, I was reckless with everything, growing bored of people and things quickly, until I met Shen Mo. He respected me, always listened, obedient like a little pup. What began as pity slowly turned into admiration. Now, everything has developed exactly as it should. He had become the kind of man any woman would dream of. I agreed to meet Shen Mo's father. Sitting across from him in a cafe, dressed in his prim and proper suit, I asked lightly, "I heard your wife used to be a diplomat." Criticizing someone in the prime of their career under the spotlight of international media, well, that was far more glamorous than her current life. He narrowed his eyes. "What are you implying?" I smiled faintly. A woman once so brilliant now spends her days stuck in a kitchen, her figure growing heavy, her mind falling behind the times. You grew bored. And so you realized you were drawn to younger women, lively, radiant, not to a nagging wife who does nothing but complain and weigh you down. Isn't that right? "Shut up," he snapped, but I ignored him. "Funny thing," I continued, still smiling. "The one who turned her into that woman was you." I didn't know whether he had already cheated or was on the brink of it, but judging by his demeanor, I was certain it was only a matter of time. A love once deep and tender had withered under years of domestic torment. Perhaps even he felt restless, trapped in a marriage that went as he had planned, yet it brought him no joy. "Let Shen Mo go," I said evenly. "You and your wife have tortured him enough. Don't heap the burden of your failures onto him. If you persist," I leaned in, smiling. "Mr. Shen, I'm polite now only because he's your father. But if I find out you're scheming against him again, I won't hold back." He looked startled, collapsing back into his chair as if I'd stolen the words he meant to use to threaten me. "You think," he sneered, "if my wife had half the backbone you had, things would have ended differently between us?" "You're wrong," I replied. "If I'd been unlucky enough to end up with someone like you, the ending would have been death for both of us. Mr. Shen, with your temperament, any woman who gets entangled with you is doomed to suffer." That struck a nerve. He shot up, hand raised to hit me, only to be shoved down hard by my bodyguard. A man over 50, shoved like that, struggling pathetically on the ground, it was humiliating beyond words. I chuckled softly. "I told you already, Mr. Shen. I am not your wife. I am not some soft persimmon for you to squeeze at will. Remember this. Stay away from Shen Mo. Otherwise," I grabbed the hot coffee cup. "Next time, I'll pour this over your head." Violence against violence wasn't my way, but sometimes it was the only language certain men understood. This was Jeng Chang, my turf. He had no chance against me here. He could only swallow his rage and disappear. After the wedding, Shen Mo rolled with me across our bridal bed, giggling like a child. Shen Mo, he mumbled as if he still couldn't believe it. "I finally married you." The fool. I pretended to be annoyed, smacking his back. "Enough, drunkard. Go shower." Still grinning, he obeyed, shuffling off to the bathroom. I lay waiting in the lingerie I'd prepared for this night. When he returned, his eyes lit up instantly, a hungry growl rumbling in his throat like a wild wolf. I was exhausted to the bone. He still had boundless energy. At last, he cradled me, pressing a kiss to my lips. Tender, reverent. In his frenzy, he whispered, "Baby," his voice trembling with affection. I drifted into sleep in his arms. But that night, I dreamed a terrible dream. I dreamed of Shinmo's past life. After I fled our marriage, his father had gone to him smugly declaring, "You know, you can't escape it. You'll hunt her down, cage her, just like I caged my mother. Stop pretending you can hide the madness inside you. Her future will be your mother's fate.
She will be driven insane by you." In the dream, I saw Shen Mo clutching his head, roaring in agony, trapped in a room plastered with my photos. His face twisted, feral, as he growled, "No." And because he refused to harm me, he chose death instead. I woke drenched in cold sweat. Beside me, Shen Mo slept soundly, arms wrapped around me. I brushed his delicate brows with my fingers, then slipped quietly from the bed. With the keys I'd stolen, I stood before the locked door. Testing them one by one, at last, the lock clicked open. Step by step, I entered the nightmare room. The truth behind his self-destruction, I realized, was his desperate attempt to erase the filthy blood he despised in himself, to release unbearable pressure. There he had stood, staring at the wall covered with my images, memorizing every smile. Blood streamed from his wrist, his life ebbing with every second. Yet even in his final moments, his eyes were fixed only on me. I remembered the viral posts from that time, after his death in my previous life. They weren't wrong, calling him the king of hopeless romantics. Even now, I still don't know when or how Shen Mo's love for me began. No matter how many times I asked, he would never tell me.
Between husband and wife, some secrets remain hidden. But since he refused to speak, I let it be. "Yuyan?" I turned. Shen Mo had been asleep, yet now he stood behind me, backlit by the pale glow, his expression uneasy. His voice trembled. Do you think I'm a pervert?" I shook my head, stepping forward to take his cold hand. "Why are you awake?" "Because you weren't beside me." He looked wounded. "The blanket felt cold." I burst out laughing. The first time we met, he had been aloof, distant, stiff under my questions. But now he could act spoiled whenever he pleased, like a mischievous child. It's the way of love. Once you accept someone, no matter their age, they will sometimes reveal the vulnerable side of a child. Still, he tugged at my sleeve nervously. "Do you really not think I'm a pervert?" "No," I smiled softly. "You're more like a character from a romance novel. Honestly, I never imagined you'd been in love with me for so long." "You're not angry at me?" His cheeks flushed. "Why would I be angry? You loved me. Why would that make me angry?" He blushed deeper, wrapping his arms around my waist. "You're so good to me. Then, no matter what I do, you'll indulge me, won't you?" "I only trust that you won't harm me." I looped my arms around his neck. "I believe in your nature. A man who would rather wound himself than cause me pain, even a little, doesn't deserve to be thought of badly. True love is rare. Two people finding happiness together is rarer still." I respected Shen Mo's feelings, just as he cherished mine. But love also breeds madness. A cub, once given affection, will go wild if it senses that affection might be stolen away. That was Shen Mo's attitude toward Liang Cheng. "I had to work so hard to stop him from throwing away that gift he gave me," I teased. "It was only a handmade nightgown, a little embroidered heart stitched on the chest, not even much of a confession." But the instant Shen Mo saw it, he nearly exploded. Only my glare kept him in check. He collapsed into the sofa, sulking like a statue. I ignored him, lifting the nightgown up for another look. "What's so special about it?" he muttered, creeping over to hold me from behind, his warm breath brushing my neck. "Wife," he whispered, soft and sulky. All right, all right." I shoved the gift into his hands. "But if you dare throw it away, you'll answer to me." Instantly, he grabbed scissors and shredded it into tiny pieces, venting his jealousy. I sighed. "Do you really hate Liang Cheng that much?" A pause.
He's close to you yet still dallies with other women. That's not loyalty. His double standards amused me, but I held my tongue. What did it matter now? I coaxed him gently. It doesn't matter anymore. We live together now. Do you think he still has a chance? Face flushed, Shen Mo looked away, mumbling a quiet I never treated Shen Mo's depression like an illness. I treated him like anyone else, spoiling him like a child when needed, giving him safety, happiness, consistency, and little by little, he healed. His confidence grew. His dependence on me wasn't weakness anymore. It was strength. One day, his assistant confided in me. Honestly, madam, the boss, he loves like a fool. He puts his entire spirit in your hands. I already knew. It wasn't ideal, but it was who he was. If anything ever happened to me, he wouldn't survive it. I sighed, but nothing in life is perfect. Since I had chosen him, I had chosen every part of him too. His flaws, his intensity, his fragility. I never wanted to change him. Relationships shouldn't be about forcing painful transformations. They should be about sharing joy and richness of spirit. I only wanted Shen Mo to be happy. That was enough for me. 3 years into our marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. When I told him, Shen Mo panicked. He couldn't sleep, pacing in agitation until I finally asked him why. Yu Yuan. His voice was pitiful, almost childlike. What if I can't be a good father? If our child grows up poorly, will you blame me? I stroked his hair. Of course not. You matter more than any child. Our children won't starve. They'll live their own lives, shape their own destinies. But you're the one I'll spend my whole life with. His eyes widened. He opened his mouth to say something, then closed it again. At last he murmured, Wife, you're strange. Maybe, I laughed softly. Eastern parents often live like candles, burning themselves to light the way for their children. But I disagreed. We have only a few decades. To live only for others is a waste. Shen Mo and I were different. He longed desperately for a happy family, a gentle wife, children, filling the house with laughter. You'll do well, I reassured him. Every wish you had as a child, you'll fulfill for our child. You'll be a good father. Raising a child will heal your own childhood. That was why I chose to have this baby, for him. Shen Mo whispered into my hair, Wife, you're the only thing that matters. I just want us to have a child together. I'll treat it well, I promise. I know you will, and I know you'll live a long, happy life. I'll be by your side, watching you harvest the sweetness of it all. By the 6th year of our marriage, our child had turned 2. That was when Shen Mo dreamed of his previous life. He saw himself dead, in a cold, gray, suffocating room. And he saw me, placing a fragile rose beside his lifeless body. He woke up shaken, standing on the balcony smoking all night under a full moon, round as the mooncake I'd baked him last year. If I had run from him, his death would have been inevitable. He knew that, and in his dream, he felt again the despair of that past life. Depression doesn't ask permission. It devours. But in this life, I had never abandoned him. What's wrong? I came up behind him, looping my arms around his waist. His mood had been heavy all evening. He wanted to whine to me, but the words stuck. Instead, he lifted me suddenly into his arms. Rogue, I gasped, legs wrapping instinctively around his waist as I smacked his shoulder. His face reddened, but he only held me tighter, burying his face in my neck. I didn't press him. I knew he hated talking about the past. I always told him, think of the future. So he didn't speak of the dream. He only whispered, I love you so much, baby.